Okay, in the previous lesson, we had a look at bringing and importing, vectorizing a walk cycle into Toonboon, assessing its timing, adjusting it so that it actually looked okay, creating a cycle from that, and basically looked at how to cycle things. So basically, what we ended up with at the end of the lesson was a walk cycle being repeated twice. What we want to do now is to have a look at pegs, what pegs bring to the mix. Um, Basically, a peg in Toonboon takes its name from a peg bar, where sort of you're all used to, you've all seen it, and you've been using it for the past 2 weeks. Um, in this particular case, it allows us, a peg bar allows us to look at transformation. In other words, look at things like being able to move things, being able to rotate things, and being able to scale things. And in order for us to bring in a peg into our workflow, simple solution would be, actually there are lots of different ways, but we're going to look at it, we're going to peel this back and look at the different ways that we can actually use the peg. So we can go to add layers, click that open, and there's a little option there called the peg. I'm going to click that, and here is my peg. As on its own, it doesn't do anything. It's just a peg, it's an object in my scene. In order for this to influence the drawing that I've got, I have got to attach the drawing, or this layer of drawings, this animation, to the peg. And to attach this, what I need to do is to create a set of hierarchies called the parent-child. Parent being the peg, child being the girl, where wherever the peg goes, or whatever the peg does, the child would have to do exactly the same thing. So in order for that to happen, it's a very simple solution of selecting the girl layer, the animation layer, and dragging it into the peg layer. And you notice that it sort of is sitting right underneath it in a kind of a folder. So I can actually close this, and all you'll be able to see is the peg. That's one way of doing it. I'm just going to undo that, and I'm going to get rid of this layer, this peg layer. The other way to do it is to actually select the girl layer, and then the girl animation, and then hit add peg to it. In which case it does that automatically, creates that hierarchy. It even renames it, calling it girl walk score dash P, the peg. So we know what belongs to what in this instance. Okay, so once we've got that set up, there are one or two other ways of doing this. I think you can literally go to the girl layer and right click and add a peg here in one of the options on Toonboon 5 anyway. But that's another option that you could try. You notice that what we don't have here in the X sheet is the peg object in as one of the columns. It doesn't quite work like that. All right, so what do I need to do from this instant onwards? It's very simple, straightforward. What I need to do is to make sure that I've got my transform button selected in my toolbar. I'm going to my peg bar. What I intend to do is to just demonstrate how I can actually get the character to move across the stage without too much of an animation happening. So with my peg selected, and making sure that I am in transform mode, I'll go to my first layer, first frame, right click, and insert a keyframe. Now, right now I can't see anything here, but if I just zoom in, you notice that there it is, that I've actually created a peg there. And what I'll do is in fact move that to the first frame, then go to the last frame there, again making sure that this transform node is selected. I'm going to go to my option and pull it forward. And what I have got to my drawing and pull it forward. And you notice that now it's created a tween. from frame 1 to the last frame where I had stuff happening. Now, in Toonboon 5, it could be that what you need to do is insert a keyframe here as well, and then make sure, and after that, make sure that you're actually moving things forward. Oops, wrong one. Okay, there we go. Moving things forward, like so. And if I scrub backwards, you notice that I've got issue with my video card, but you notice that the character is moving forward. So I'm just going to hit play at this instance, and what I'll see is the character moving forward. Now, is this moving in the right space? It really isn't. So I'm just going to increase that to fit view, go back to my first frame, and the likelihood of those feet sliding is great. It is moving a little bit too fast for my liking. So ideally what I want to do is to kind of make sure that is going at the right speed. So let me go back to 50%. Best thing to do is to attempt to slow this right down or increase the number of cycles for that amount of movement, so that this kind of falls into the right framing. So let's just try and slow this right down by attempting to bring this from this point back a bit to that point. So that should have slowed it down somewhat. And if I play this now, that's running much better. And that kind of works at this stage. It's to the speed, and the feet seem to be hitting the ground and holding the pose really well. Okay, so that's one way to do it, to bring pegs in. Pegs are really great in a lot of ways, because I could add another peg on top of this. So if I just hit another peg and use that peg, I'm going to again keyframe it in the first instance. In your case, you need to go back and keyframe it at the last instance as well, last frame. And what I could do is at the last frame, I could literally then make sure that this is changed somewhat. So I'm just resizing this character to be a bit smaller, and the result would be that. So you can literally do lots and lots of different things with it. And the beauty of it is that this method is non-destructive, in a sense that if I'm not happy with what I've got here, what I could do is simply drag this out of the entire layer, entire hierarchy, and simply delete that peg, and I still have my action happening. So it's non-destructive. Nothing will happen to the actual animation itself. You can always go back and undo stuff. All right, so that's one thing. What's in terms of camera work, at the moment what we have got is the character moving out of the scene slowly across time. What if the plan was for the character to come into the scene and for the camera to actually follow? What would I need to do? Well, it's very simple. I can do the exact reverse of this. I'm just going to get rid of this. Oops. We'll make sure that this is out of the hierarchy. And I'm going to reintroduce another peg. And this time, what I'll do is make sure that the character is actually out of the scene before inserting my first keyframe. then get the character to come in into the scene roughly here. Now let's play that and see what happens. So by the second cycle, the character would have reached into the scene roughly about here. So what I'll need to do is I'm going to go back and bring in another cycle. In fact, I'm going to bring 2 more cycles. So what we have got now is some more frames there, and what's going to happen is that from this point onwards, the character is going to be cycling on the same spot. So let's run this and have a look at this. And now the camera is going to be following the character on the scene. That follow through can be a lot longer, so let me just go back and introduce more frames. That should do it for us. Go back to my first frame. Now we should be able to see this a bit better. Character comes into the scene, camera follows it until the end. Of course, with the bit where the camera follows it, you really want the background to be scrubbing backwards at the same time. And that's going to form the next lesson, next part of it.